he is.
So can you introduce him to us?
This is Teddy. He came from Vienna. He's now very old, almost threadbare, and he's got patches, but he's much loved and cherished. I was born to a Christian mother and a Jewish father. Once Hitler came into Austria and took power there, he was already persecuting Jews, and to him it made no difference whether you were fully Jewish or partly Jewish. I was known as a Mischling, and the word Mischling actually in the German, if you translate it literally, is a mixture, but that was not the meaning that the Germans gave to that word, because they considered you to be a mongrel. Kristallnacht was a dreadful night of carnage when the Nazis went on the rampage in all the big cities. There were some very good people in this country, formed a sort of association, which in turn formed the Kindertransport. They developed the Kindertransport to bring children unaccompanied by their parents to England for safety. How my grandmother heard about the Kindertransport, I never found out. But she did, and she obviously feared for my safety and therefore made arrangements for me to come to England. I've had to overcome many barriers in my life, really. My biggest barrier probably was coming to England, not knowing where I was going and not being familiar with the language, the culture, anything else. When I finished my teacher training, I applied to the Catholic Committee for Refugees to give me a character reference. Well, this letter was sent to me, and one of the nicest, most inspirational things which have been said to me, at least I feel that, in the letter, they say that they're very proud of me, and they say, you have overcome obstacles that would have defeated anyone of less courage and determination. And I think that spurred me on to even try and achieve more. I think women will always have to prove themselves. And I think as long as every woman thinks that she's capable of doing a great job in whatever job she's doing, it doesn't matter how humble the job or how important the job, we must not discriminate. We must not have prejudices. We should accept people for what they are and not for who they are, but what they are.
Good afternoon, Newcastle Women's Aid. I came to Newcastle Women's Aid when I was a student, and I came here on placement working in the children's service. And I have been here now over 20 years, and I moved on from the children's service to work more with the women who were using the service throughout outreach and refuge, and now I manage the women's service. In my job, lots of people will say to us, well, you must see some terrible sights. And yes, we do hear very, very sad things, but for me, in this job, it's absolutely just brilliant when a woman comes in and by the end of our support is now completely changed. She's making and taking decisions, she's got options, she's deciding what to do, and she's making plans for our future. I think challenges that women are going to face in the next decade are some of the same challenges that we've faced in recent decades. 1 in 3 women will at some point in their life experience domestic violence and abuse. And for the women and the girls that we work with, what we see is going through court systems, legal procedures, can sometimes mean that they experience further abuse and certainly more trauma. We need to have more awareness and specialist training within our criminal justice system, and we need to invest in that so people who are making and taking decisions about women and children's lives are equipped to do that safely.
I decided I wanted to become an MP because in the North East we hadn't had any women MPs from the Labour Party since Ellen Wilkins during the 45 government. Being involved in your own community in real ways and valuing what women bring to the space they have and the space that you're in is so important, because we then learn how to support women effectively. I chaired a commission last year that was about women who've experienced violence and abuse. They have a major contribution to make, and they would hate to just be seen as victims, and we've got to be careful we don't treat women who've had those sorts of experiences as victims or as mentally ill or whatever. They are people who've got potential, and it's how do you find that? Throughout the public services, whether it's the receptionist in the GP practice, whether it's the housing department, they all need trauma-informed training. Because if you understand how trauma affects people, that means you will work with them in a way that recognises that and doesn't see that as a barrier that can't be got through. Is so important, because we then learn how to support women effectively and to be able to challenge those who don't give them the space and the opportunity. Our job is, wherever women are, to make it clear that there are things they can do to change the experience of their life and of their family's life.
I was Labour Member of the European Parliament from 2014 to the end of January 2020. I'd been in the international trade union movement 15 years before, including 5 years where I led steel workers across Europe. So that was quite a formative experience for me. I'm from Middlesbrough, so leading the European Steelworkers Committee was quite a big deal. What we're seeing is the start of a big backlash against many of the wins that started, with the suffragettes, right through Barbara Castle and the Dagenham women, through the courts in the 1970s and 80s for pension equality, which we still haven't got, gender pay legislation, which is still there, the gender pay gap. But all of that progress in the right direction could be reversed. People like Dominic Raab, Rees-Mogg, Priti Patel, and some of the other ogres in the front bench of the Tory party, their main target are those rights, because they see them as a hindrance on individual sovereignty, and they frame that in a way that they want a small state with little government, with a low tax base and an extreme neoliberal economic model, something close to Singapore. To do that, you don't have a right space. And what that will mean for women in the UK long term could be really disastrous. People are so fatigued about Brexit, they don't want to talk about it anymore, they don't want to think about it, that will mean that we're not ready for the fight which is coming to defend our most basic rights.
From a really young age, actually, the inspiration has been my mum, and maybe I haven't realised that until I got a bit older, but actually she's someone who has consistently fought against sexism and racism whenever she's encountered it, refused to be silenced and refused to accept the status quo. And I think growing up with that and seeing that is just really powerful.
So, my good fellow.
The reason why I actually wrote the book was because I felt like there wasn't enough knowledge about the UK's history of immigration and how that history is gendered, how it's racialised and how it's classed. For women generally, I think that there is a backlash at the moment. I attempt to roll back women's reproductive rights in different places around the world, but this kind of attack on this idea that talking about gender or race or sexuality is somehow identity politics automatically, and that is a problem. It's kind of a distraction from real hard issues, but actually the economy is gendered, the economy is racialised, and if we look at what's happened under austerity, women of colour have suffered more than any other group, but that is not part of the mainstream narrative. And I think you have to keep talking to those people who are like-minded, keep talking to those other women of colour, young women who are experiencing really similar things in their workplaces, because that is what kind of keeps you going and gives you the courage, I think, to stand up to some of it.
I got involved with the White Ribbon campaign because a motion was brought to City Council. I came from a dysfunctional family. I went into care when I was 15. When I was 16, I absconded to Newcastle with my ex-partner. I wanted to leave many times, but I couldn't because then he would be, I'll kill the children. I was told I wasn't good enough. I was ugly, fat, stupid. And it kept going on. And you do, when you're stuck in domestic violence, you do believe that. If his meal wasn't cooked the way you wanted it, it was chucked at me. The house was smashed up. If I spoke to somebody that I shouldn't, I got a good hiding. If it had been around, I think when this was happening to me, then I don't think it would have went as far, because then men, his brothers or his friends would have said enough was enough, and they would have called him out, and it would have stopped that happening to me. A handful of men are beating these women up. We need to say, no, this is not normal behaviour. You do not hurt another human being, and especially do not hurt girls or women.
I am an artist from Middle East. I practice art through political and social cartoons. Moving from the Middle East to UK, actually it helps to understand different stories in different way, and also tell my own version of the story. I'm very attracted to the image of people actually protesting in the street. I think it's one of the most powerful and most brave thing you can do. One of the important things to realize how much is important to receive the story from different perspectives and different cultural backgrounds. One of the videos that went trend on the social media, and it was about a dad trying to tell his daughter that the sound of the bombs outside is actually something fun. I'm not a great speaker, but I always go with showing the visuals just to avoid this talking part.
So the Hygiene Bank is a national charity that was started probably 15 months ago, focused on helping people who are living in hygiene poverty, so people who don't have access to basic hygiene products such as shampoo, shower gel, toothbrush, toothpaste, that kind of stuff.
So I think it's a situation that you can really imagine yourself in, and how you would feel if you weren't able to present your best self every day, or you didn't have the option to present your best self every day. I think women often, I guess, bear the brunt of quite a lot of the issues that the Hygiene Bank deals with.
The biggest thing for me right now is making people aware that this is an issue. I think over the past year, I've realised that when people think about people living in poverty, women living in poverty, you think about their access to food, their access to housing. We don't so much think about their access to hygiene products.
And I think it's really easy to give up and say, this is hopeless, nothing's going to change, let's just crack on and stay in our lane. But that sense of community that I found through doing this, we've met so many amazing women that are lifting other women up, and it feels like we're creating this safety net that the government aren't. I don't think that's right, I don't think we should exist, but we have to. If you speak to any teacher, they'll tell you that they're cleaning people's teeth. They'll tell you that they're washing uniforms. If you speak to midwives, they'll tell you that they're supporting vulnerable mothers who are going into hospital, coming out with a baby and having absolutely nothing.
I can't really stand injustice and seeing people on the fringes of society where no one's helping them. Like, no one's helping them. Like, someone's got to.
Don't feel hopeless. There are things that you can do. There are other amazing women out there that have the same ideals, the same values, that are just as eager to help as you are, and you just need to go out and meet them and get stuck in.
I'm not a person of great confidence, but I'm determined and I have a great sense of social justice, and that's what's driven me as a very ordinary woman from North Shields to become the MP where I represent North Tyneside. And it's not an easy journey for women, and particularly women who haven't grown up in an environment where they feel they have a right to do everything, to be anything they want to be, and to live in an environment which many of us do, where men in particular, and sometimes women, will be patronising towards you, will show that they don't think you should be where you are. And then that can reinforce your doubt, but it's playing the game, but actually proving you're stronger and achieving your goals despite the fact that some people want to hold you back. By sticking together, by working together, by being involved in groups like the Women's Forum, somewhere where they can come together, discuss together, show respect for each other, and in the end contributing to society in a way that is beneficial not just to women but to everyone else.
The Angeles Centre is a black and minority-led women's organisation. It's been going for over 25 years. And a big part of our work is around supporting women that nobody else is supporting, particularly women without recourse to public funds.
Our ethos is black feminism, and we use the term blackness in a political sense to take into account that shared experience of oppression and that understanding that we are stronger together.
I came to this country at the age of 12 and I left school at the age of 15.
My mum had me very young, and this was in the 70s, and I was a mixed race girl in a white household.
I am half Arab, half English, and clearly I have quite a close proximity to whiteness. And growing up, I found that quite difficult in relation to my identity.
When I came here, the first thing I faced, obviously, apart from sexism, was racism. It was quite shocking because I come from a majority black country.
So my barrier was always that I wanted to stay on in terms of, further studies, education, but I wasn't allowed to. I am very lucky in lots of ways because every job I went to, I, worked very hard, but I got a lot of support. Because I think people around me believed in me, that I really wanted to do the job I was in.
It's been pressure from the government in terms of immigration and also having no recourse to public funds. I'm technically homeless. I live in one of the refuges here. There's also been an increase in hate crime, so against queer communities, against BME communities, against Muslims. And you feel like you cleanse yourself every day and you go out into the world with your clean skin, expecting, everyone to be welcoming and loving, but you feel like someone's flinging mud at you because of how they react.
When a woman turns to any professional for support, what's happening is that they're not looking at the safety and the risks, and they abuse the woman and the children are suffering. They're more concerned about what their nationalities are or what community they belong to, or how they should be returning back to where they've come from. So a woman could, in that split second, be killed. The children could be harmed, she could be harmed, but they're not considering that the safety and the risks of what's happening. And it's across the board in terms of BME communities.
Things are not any better. When we look at kind of any statistics around women of colour being in employment, or who are the communities that face the most socioeconomic inequalities, it's the same communities, particularly in terms of a disparity in terms of wages, a disparity around access to childcare. We've got a higher number of women, single parents, that are accessing food banks, things like that. So I think we've got to see it not only through a gendered lens, we've got to see it through multiple lenses.
I live in a rural community. I'm a disabled woman. I'm an activist and I'm interested in disability and poverty, especially women in rural communities. You lack access to services and you also lack of understanding. Society misunderstands what your needs are. They just think you're disabled and that's it, but you're not just a label. The cuts in services in rural communities impact on all of us. CAMS has been cut, education has been cut, transportation has been cut, funding has been cut. The disability and universal credit system is a minefield, and unless you understand how to use computers, which some women don't, you're at a loss. And if you live here in a rural community, you're being swallowed by everybody else's needs because they're just as deprived or they're just as needy as you are, but they have more access to these services. They have more opportunities to go out and get things. They have more help than, so that the little people, well, the disabled people, or those without a voice, either just have to get on with it, or they just get failed by the whole system. It's important that we get what we're entitled to, but it's also important to get what we aspire to. 100 years ago, women, not all women had the vote, but now women aren't bothering to vote. 50 years ago, women had equal pay, but we're still not getting equal pay, even if it's just causing aggravation to all of the systems or everybody else. I'm not allowing them to tell me, right, that's enough, you've had your chance. Even when I'm dead, it's not an excuse to give up.
We need to build mechanisms and systems of solidarity which involve everyone and everybody can bring something to the table.
We're all women who need to look out for each other.
And working together is something very important.
You need to know yourself and your strengths and give yourself the time and opportunity to do that.
You start with the women at the most need and you're going to get hopefully everything else right.
If I can do it, you can do it.
Get angry and get shouting.
Believe in yourself and don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in.
Seeing women making and taking decisions again about their lives, it's just fantastic.
The amount of stuff my mum did for me that I didn't even know about as a child, it's amazing. My mum's amazing.
Get your husbands, your brothers, your sons, your fathers to sign up to this White Ribbon Pledge.
You're powerful. Don't let anyone rob you of your joy.
We are entitled to social, economic and political independence.
If help is offered, please do take it, because I certainly did on my way through my life.